Hey, are you free? Today's conversation is a special one because I'm sitting down with someone who's been in my life for over 20 years. Nicole is one of my closest friends, my college partner in crime, and my former Wall Street roommate. We've been through it all together from cross country moves, career pivots, love, heartbreak, kids, and the transformation of life. And we're still growing, still learning, and still walking through life side by side, even though we're 3,000 miles apart. In this episode, we reflect back on the last 2 decades, what we've learned, what surprised us, and what we're still learning today. We talk about what it means to live the life you want, not the one others expect you to live. Nicole shares how trusting her gut led her to move across the world, start over in a new country, and build a life rooted in self trust and bold, intentional decisions. We talk about travel, love, finding community, and the courage it takes to say yes, even when the path isn't clear. So, whether you're questioning your next move, learning how to trust yourself again, or simply craving a story that reminds you of what's possible, welcome to the conversation. I am so excited to connect with you today. I feel like just even doing my notes for this podcast, I wrote down how we have 20 plus years of friendship, and that's over half our life. I
I
couldn't
know,
e-
it's crazy.
I couldn't believe it. And then I was reflecting on all of the things that we've been through together since we've met. So, freshman year of college we met. We weren't college roommates, but we were, what do I call ourselves? College partners.
We spent a lot of time together, a lot.
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time together. We did the same business program in college, and then we were roommates on Wall Street, which I tell people this all the time. I'm like, my first job, I lived on Wall Street, and they're always shocked, like
I
that I
know,
even
right?
lived on Wall Street or
A lot
worked
of
in
people don't
investment
realize
banking.
a lot of people don't realize, one, that you could even, live on Wall Street. It's a weird place to be like, "Oh, my address is Wall Street." They're like, "What? People live there?"
Yeah,
It's amazing, though, how that area has developed. When we lived there, it was quite sleepy because everybody would go to work and, I don't know, it would be busy during work hours, and then after that, on the weekends, it was quiet, and now there's a lot
so
more down
quiet.
there. Mhm.
South Street Seaport.
Oh, that was, yeah, South Street was great. Apparently, they've redone that as well. Haven't been there in ages.
I think it'd be really weird to like go back there. I have definitely not been back there. So we've been through boyfriends, we've been through heartache, we've been through love, we've seen each other through like cross country moves, marriages, kids, like all these highs and lows in life, which is like transformation. Like even how we've both transformed as humans, we've we've been with each other through all that. And I was like, holy crap, like how cool is it? I have a couple friends that I can say I've known for more than half my life, and it's just so beautiful.
It is. And I feel like what you just said is we've both changed so much since we both met. Like, who knew where life would take us after college? And when you're in your teens and your 20s and you're just trying to figure out life and survival and all that other stuff and where life would take us. And I feel like we both had really interesting lives since then.
Yeah. And what prompted this whole episode for me was 10 years ago, because Aubrey's 9. So
She's
10
9
years
already.
ago, you gave Aubrey a book before she was born. It was at my baby shower. And it's called I Like Myself by Karen Beaumont. And I still read it to Finley to this day, but you, out of nobody else but you, did this. And I think it's beautiful. I think I might, like, just be buried with the book because this is what you wrote inside of it, right? And I wanna reflect on this a little bit now that we're in our 40s and we're in
Wait, am
our
I the only one that did that? Because I feel like, I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, people would sign it, but I
Yeah.
mean, you, like, wrote a dissertation and stuff. Like, you were like, "Here's the 3 things that." So listen, you said, "Things I would tell my younger self. Travel the world. In my opinion, experiences are more valuable than materialistic items. You won't forget them. Live the life you want to live, not the one others want you to live. And be responsible with money. It is what will allow you to be independent and experience many things in life." And I was like, whoa, like you were 30, right? Like we were in our
Yeah.
30s, young 30s. So I'm so curious, what prompted you to write that advice? Like, what comes up for you when you hear it now?
Oof, what prompted me to write that at the time? I think a few things. One is, all right, if we focus on travel, I didn't travel a lot growing up as a kid. I wasn't one of those people that went on like these European holidays, often. Don't get me wrong, we traveled a bit, went to Florida and all that other stuff, but I didn't really like get an interest until I was kind of in my mid to upper 20s. So, and I remember going on this trip to Spain and Italy and being like, whoa, the culture is so different. It's so beautiful, just seeing a different way of life. And I really kind of got the travel bug because I I just loved being exposed to different cultures and a different way of thinking, something that I hadn't seen before. And um, so yeah, I would think probably around then, I had just had a few years kind of under my belt of traveling and my world kind of just got way bigger. And I just thought it was so important to get those experiences. And
When you
then,
say, like, your world got so much bigger, I'm curious, like, what expanded for you?
well, it more that instead of just being in the US, having this ability to go beyond the US and then also having the means, back to my other point, to be able to go do that. Um, I think too, part of it has to do like where I came from. Writing some of that is I'm a product of of a divorced parents. Yeah,
Yep.
they were divorced when I was quite young, and I think that kind of shapes you in a way. In that, at least for me, I kind of felt like a little bit like I'm on my own, even though I wasn't on my own, but I felt like, nobody's going to look after me but me. Maybe some people would look at that as, a negative thing to say, but at the same time, it kind of made me who I am today and, you know, kind of go after a job that was going to pay me well so I didn't have to turn around and ask anybody for help. And that then allowed me then to, I guess, experience different things in life as well because then I was able to go travel and go do things as well.
Did you know in your 20s that that drive came from being the product of a divorced family? Or did you recognize that later in life?
Uh, I think it did. I did kind of know that. I didn't know that probably in my teens, but I do feel like I did know in my 20s that I was making certain decisions because I wanted to set myself up in a way where I wouldn't have to turn around and ask anybody for help. So,
You are probably one of the most strategic people that I know.
really,
In the sense of, like, when it comes to, like, planning your life, but you also went on a singles trip to Costa Rica, met your husband, moved across to London, and ended up in Ireland, right? So, but you're maybe strategic's not the word, but you're very calculated. Like, you're very calculated in your decisions, or like, how many decisions do you make where you're just, like, on a whim? I feel like you, like, definitely, like, plan them and know, like, you had a wedding account. You had a I was always impressed with your wedding savings account. Like, there was a
I forgot about
strategy
that.
to this, right?
That's true. I had the account before I even got married, but it was more like
Mhm.
I have money and I guess I was thinking about bigger expenses and things that might happen in the future. And again, it was something I didn't want to have to worry about later down the line. So I think it wasn't just an account around a wedding. It was like also kind of like what are bigger things that I might want to do in my life in the future. So it's also saving at the time for buying a property as well, when at the time when I opened it, I wasn't even sure where I wanted to live or what I wanted to do and all that other stuff. But funny enough, I don't have a hard time making big decisions quickly. I have a hard time making decisions like, what do I want to eat at the restaurant? There's a really long menu. If you go to a diner with there's like 100 items on a menu, I have a really hard time making a decision. But the bigger decisions, not so much. And I don't know really why that is, but like, yes, I decided to go move to London to be with my now husband, and that happened 9 months after meeting him. And the decision was made literally within a couple of months, maybe 2 months of actually meeting him. When I bought my apartment in Astoria, I looked at one apartment. I remember, and then I bought it. And because I know most people would look around the area and say, okay, what else is out there? But for me, I'm like, well, I'm going to put down roots in Astoria. I like it here. An apartment came on the market. It was pretty good price. I'm like, I could live here. And I bought the place without looking at any other place. And a lot of people wouldn't do the same thing, but I was just, I guess the way I thought about it was, oh, this is not risky. It's a great area. If I don't like it, I could always, rent it out or do something else with it at the time.
Girl, you're so decisive
No, I'm
because
not
it comes
decisive.
well, when it comes to things like this, right? You're like, "I'm
Yeah.
gonna buy this building and then I can sell it or rent it," which you did, right? You ended up renting it and then you ended up selling it, which is exactly what you did, right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, you were like, "Okay, what's the worst that can happen? I just have to rent it out and then I'll sell it," and it
Yeah.
ended
Well,
up
let's
being a
let's
good
talk.
investment for you.
Yeah, actually, let's talk about that. So you kind of touched on it. So I was living in New York at the time. I decided that I was going to go to Costa Rica on this hiking trip for 10 days. And on that trip, I met my now husband. And I remember going back to New York. I had actually just closed on that apartment. So literally, I decided before going on that trip that I was going to didn't know what I wanna do, but I was like, "I'm gonna settle down in Astoria. I'm gonna, plant some roots here. I'm gonna buy a place." And then, of course, literally 10 days later, I'm in Costa Rica, and I meet the love of my life, and yeah, I closed on this apartment. I remember coming back and my parents telling my parents I met this guy, and they're like, "You just bought an apartment. What are you thinking?" And I was like, "No, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. Like, it's in a great area." I met this guy, and he's so unlike every other guy that I met in New York. Because I don't know, you might remember. Actually, I don't think you dated too much in New York because you were actually in a relationship at the time.
Oh, I feel like
But
I know enough New York people that, like, it scarred me. So, yes.
yeah, it's scary dating in New York. When I say scary, it's because nobody's looking to settle down. Everybody's looking for somebody to spend time with, and that's it.
So and
And
some
then I
fun. Let's just have some fun and move on.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so then I went to Costa Rica and I met this Irish guy living in London, and he was so transparent with his feelings. On the last day that I was on this trip, he's like, I don't want it to end here. And me being I guess, the jaded New Yorker that I am, I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll never hear from him again. Holiday romance, nice knowing you. And then I go back to New York, and I remember like a couple days later, because I'd stayed in Costa Rica longer to go volunteer at an animal rescue shelter, as you do. Um, and he calls me, and I'm on the train, and I remember thinking at the time was, "Oh my god, he called." When I say he called,
Mm.
because everybody at the time was texting, and
Yeah.
he just wanted to call and to have a chat and everything, and he was so genuine with his feelings, and I was like, when people say, "When you know, you know," uh,
Mhm.
and it should be easy. You shouldn't be second guessing, does he like me? Does he not like me? Because I've had plenty of that where all of a sudden you're deciphering his text messages and being like, what does that mean? Does he actually like me? Of course he does. Oh, actually, no, he doesn't. Sorry. And yeah, so I decided to, we talked about it, and he's like, I'd love for you to come live here. And I was
He
luckily.
came and visited you right away. Like, I'm having, like, memories of phone calls with you. Who went to where? Did you go to Ireland first, or did he come to you? Like, very quickly after returning from Costa Rica?
So we met in December, and then he said to me, he's like, I'm going to come over, I think it was Easter in April. And I was like, that's a really long time away from now. And I was like, I'm going to come in February.
Yeah.
And the reason why I said that was because also I was very fortunate at the time that my job had an office in London. So it was like, I'll just come over to London. I'll work from the office for a week, and we'll get to spend some time together for the week. That was a crazy trip. In that, when I went over there, unfortunately, his aunt passed away in Ireland. And he asked me while I was there for the week if I would go with him to the funeral in Ireland. I'd never been to Ireland before in my life. And I was like, okay, we're going to go to Ireland. So we literally booked tickets to go to Ireland, flew there, spent 2 days there, and then flew out. And it was an amazing experience. And that I met his whole talk about trial by fire. I met his whole family for the first time. I remember his mom getting me involved in the funeral, like, here, hold the flowers. I remember standing next to the family while everybody was going up and shaking their hands. They were super welcoming and everything, but it was very quick immersion into, I guess, Irish culture because Irish funerals as well are very different than what I would have experienced in New York. But
Were
that
you
was also
standing there like, "I'm gonna be a part of this family one day?" Like, what were you standing there like when you were in the middle of all this? Did it hit you yet that this was like you're like, "Alright, I gotta make this work?"
I was standing there and I was looking around and I was like, this guy's serious. Because oh, and how I knew that as well was when I was there, everybody knew who I was. It wasn't like so
Mm.
again, I met him in December. I was there in February. And it wasn't like, who is this random girl that wrote in as a brought home? He had told his whole family about me over Christmas. And so I was looking around and I was like, wow, he actually is into me and he's being transparent about his feelings, which is something that I was not used to, being from New
Well,
York and dating guys in New York City.
I think it's so cool because I had a very similar experience to Michael. It was the first time I was like, "Oh my god, you actually like me. People know about me. You're talking about me. Like, you're involving me in your life." Like, I had been for so long just wanting that from other people that I was dating, and I was like, "Oh my god, it does exist. Like, you're not hiding me. You're not like, everyone knows about me. I was involved in Michael's family, like, from day 6 too, right? So, it's a beautiful thing when you can experience that. So, for anyone listening, it's like, they do exist. I think I also showed
They
up
do.
with less fear of, like, I'm just gonna put out there what it is that I'm looking for and what I'm not looking for. Like, here's what I want, here's what I am looking for, here's what I don't want, here's what I won't accept, and I was bold. I was like, "I don't give a fuck." Because at this point, I've already, like, dated people that weren't working for me. So I'm like, what do I have to lose? Actually, that was like the start of showing up for me. So I want to ask you this question. You wrote down, live the life you want to live, not the one others want you to live. And so where did that one come from? Because I think a lot of us, and I know for me, I was living this life. I think of, is it Sandra Bullock or Julia Roberts in Runaway Bride, where she doesn't know what type of eggs she wants because
Oh, yeah, yeah.
yeah, her favorite eggs are, and I'm like, "Holy shit, that's me." Like, I'm
Yeah.
just living this life for everybody else, and I couldn't tell you what I wanted, whether it was my parents' approval, just their direction, but I still have to work on it to this day. Like, what is it that I want, that I can advocate for, that I feel is appropriate, right? What's this type of life so I'm still working on what that dream looks like so I can articulate it. But I'm
You and me
curious
both.
though. So where does that come up for you when you wrote that? I mean, it was 10 years ago. So,
Oh, 10 years ago.
or
It's
now,
funny. Or even
like
now. Well,
when you think about
I
living the life you want to live and not the one others want you to live.
yeah. Well, I do think, part of it had to do with, I would say, with that move, right? Like a lot of people kind of questioned at the time, why are you moving across the world or the ocean to London to go be with somebody that you've only known for a few months? Isn't it risky? You just bought a place in Astoria. Why aren't you staying there? What are you going to do about it? And I do think a lot of people like kind of get bogged down in, I just planted all these roots. I can't make a change. You know what I mean? I have a mortgage. I have this. I have that. And I think as long as you're strategic about it, you can take those risks. Like I said before, I knew my apartment was in a good area. I knew I'd be able to rent it. I was going to be in London, and if it didn't work out, I was actually going with my job, and worst comes to worst, I would be single in London, traveling, which is, something that I had just found that I was really interested and wanted to explore more. So I'm like, what's the downside? I'm like, the downside is I go to London, I'm by myself, and I have to live in London for a couple of years. Or just, it didn't work out and move back if I didn't like it or anything like that. And so to your point though, like, I think I'm still trying to think about what is the life that I want to live, right? And I feel like it's always good to kind of challenge yourself around what is it the life you feel like, I guess, you should be living as opposed to just kind of going through the motions. I think it's very easy to go through the motions,
Hmm.
and just kind of stay. stuck in a way.
So obviously this big move, right? So fear comes with this huge move. When you moved across country and you started fresh, right? What fears came up for you? And kind of what helped you move past that?
What fears came up? I think starting over and trying to find your people, you
Mm,
know, is very difficult. I had a pretty strong friend group in New York, and I was moving to a whole nother country where I was going to have to start over. Like, I didn't want it to just be, uh, me and 100% reliant on one person. I wanted my own friends or mutual friends or whatnot. And there were some things that I kind of did to counteract that, and some things that I was uncomfortable and that I had to try to get over. And what I mean by that is, so I did have some friends that I knew in London. I had made them when I was working in my first job, and we got on really well. They had spent some time in New York. So when I was going over to London, because when we were doing long distance, I was actually going over to London almost every other month. And so I was over there a couple times. I got back and, got in touch with them again, spent some time with them, and which was amazing because literally after I moved to London 3 weeks later, one of them asked me, "Oh, it's my birthday. I'm planning a girls' trip to Spain. Do you wanna come?" And I'm like, "Yes, I definitely wanna come." And I got along with, a few of the girls that were on that trip that also had worked at that previous company, and they became a really good friendship circle. And they all lived in London, for a very long time. And it helped me a little bit kind of also, these are a group of girls that I can just bounce questions off of and ask the silly questions without asking people like in my job and stuff like that. Because I know a lot of people say when I'm moving to another country and it's English speaking, I'll be fine. But culturally, it's actually really, really different. And some of the words are different, and some of the even the work culture is different, and I was so lucky to have that group of girls to be able to ask those questions.
girl, I love to you definitely lit up when you're like, "Yeah, hell yeah, I'm coming." But I think there's just that power, like I always say too, when you're stuck or when you're trying something new or you're feeling like something's not feeling right in your body, like go somewhere and say yes to something. Like that jolt of energy that shifts you. That's definitely been a big thing for me. What can I feel safe saying yes to that will open up my world, that will bring new people into it, that will create new relationships, that will give me a new experience so that I have something else than what I'm currently stuck inside of?
Yeah, and it's also too, it's trusting your gut, and if something doesn't feel right, don't push it. So I also equally remember there was a couple of girls that I met in the office in London who were very nice, and I moved over in September. It was Thanksgiving. They said, "We're gonna have a Thanksgiving meal. We're gonna cook. Why don't you come over?" I remember going, and I just didn't connect. I did not feel like they were my people, and I remember actually going home to my now husband and crying.
Mm.
I miss my friends. I didn't get on with them. I felt alone, even though I had just gone on this trip with these girls in September when I moved over, or October, to Spain, and I clicked with them. I met with this group of girls and didn't click. But I guess my point is it's okay to not click. And if you don't click, don't push it and know not to push it. And, you know, um,
I think I hear you
you know,
saying too, like about when we grow up, when we have these experiences that we hopefully safely put ourselves into, we also are learning what we like and what we don't like and what feels comfortable and
mhm.
what doesn't feel comfortable. And then, like, how now that so, like, do you know when something doesn't feel right, what your body does? Do you know, like, what it feels like in your body when something is like not,
Hmm,
you know, fire
that's a good
alarms or
question. Um, I'm not sure if I do know in my body. I think I can feel just uncomfortable in a situation. I don't know how to describe the sensations in my body. But I don't know. Just, I guess, a feeling of being uncomfortable, I guess is what I would say. Do you feel something? like, in
Yeah,
your
no,
body when
I
things
can and I've had to work on being able to describe it too, so that I can tell myself like, "Okay, breathe. This is you feeling uncomfortable. This might not be" because there's a difference, right? Sometimes we feel fear, right? Which is and sometimes we feel like, is it fear? Is it something that I don't wanna do? Is it uncomfortability? Like, what is it? But when I'm having something where there's, like, red flags or yellow flags, I
Mm.
get, like even really my body, I, like, bring my shoulders in, my chest gets heavy, my back of, like, my shoulders feel heavy too. Some people I know feel it, like, in their stomach or they get a headache, but, like, I've done a lot of like, when we start doing the self-awareness work, I do a
Mm.
lot of that work of, like, "Okay, how does my body feel right now?" And it's pretty interesting when you start thinking about it and start, like, tapping
That
into
is
it.
really
It's pretty
interesting.
cool.
I'm sure if I were to go back and think about all those times, I probably would have the same sensation. I do feel like probably, now that you're saying it, like, more in my stomach where and to your point, I think I kinda, like, close in a little bit, like, kind of protect, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. It's so and you don't like, I feel like they don't teach you growing up, like, here's what your body's telling you. Here's how to you just feel all
No.
these things. And now, like, you're raising a toddler, right? Is she still a toddler?
I
Where's she at in the
she's almost 4, so I think
okay.
that's still kinda toddler phase. I don't know, when do you get out of the toddler phase?
Uh,
I'm
I don't
reluctant to, like,
remember.
let
I'm like, I really don't remember. I feel like it bleeds into it. But yeah, so it's when you're raising kids too, you think about all the things that we were never taught. And now as parents thinking about like I feel like I can see it in my kids. Like right before the crying happens or the meltdown happens or they're feeling uncomfortable, they don't want to be
Mm.
somewhere, right? Like their behavior changes. I think maybe too for me, like
But
because
you are also so intuitive, I find. Like, when I see you with your daughter, Aubrey, and the way you interact with her, you are so attentive to her needs without her even having to ask. It is amazing because not everybody's like that. And to be honest, like,
it comes from
I'm not that. I
survival,
don't
but
have that intuition. What'd you say?
you do. You totally have that intuition. But for me, I think I didn't at first either. Like I had to learn to tap into it. And then I had to learn how to tap into it and I had to learn how to have the desire to want to actually tap into it. Like even if I could sit there and listen and then not be mad that that's what I was doing, you know? Like, all right, I have to want to be present and I have to do the work, you know? So, but yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that that's really been the beauty of Aubrey is that she has made everyone around her tap into that intuition piece of all of it, which is really cool. And communicating nonverbally has like, and I mean, it's helped me in other ways too. Like it's changed who I am as a person because, you know, type A Brie in my 20s, sure as hell and now I find myself being
Yeah.
a little bit more laid back, a little bit more type B. I understand body language better. Like I used to work with someone and be like, "Oh, so and so feels this way." And I'm like, "How do you know that?" Like that's not what they said. I'm such a words
Mm,
person and they'd be like, "Well, that's not what they said." And I'm like, "How do you know that they don't mean that or they think something differently?" And it's like they were so in
I
tune to
know.
body language and like,
I will say, like, on the vein in the same vein as travel and living in other countries and experiencing different cultures. So you already mentioned I moved to London, but now I moved from London to Dublin in Ireland about 6 years ago now. And from a work perspective, I've had to learn how to do exactly what you just described is kind of the culturally in Ireland, a lot of people tend to be indirect. And I'm a very direct person. I'm coming from New York. I'm very like, this is how it's done. I want to get out of a meeting and say, and, there be clear action points. You're doing this and you're doing this. And I've had to learn how to adjust to a culture where a lot of things aren't said and you have to read through, to your point, body language, to people's way of interacting, to reading, through the reading through the lines or whatever it's called, to actually get meaning. And so I think to your point of your experiences in your life kind of shape who you are and make you kind of grow as a person. We're
"Oh my god."
definitely, based on what we said earlier, we are not the same people that we were when we met. How old were we at the time? 18 if we met
Yeah.
in freshman year?
Yeah, probably 18. Yeah. It's so true too. And I think that When I first knew that I needed to connect better with Aubrey, because what I was recognizing at first was like my energy for her. Like when I would show up differently, she would match that energy. So I had to learn how to connect with her. But I started in the workplace because I'm the type of
Mm,
person at work, like I have to ask a lot of questions. I need to know a lot of things. It's harder for me to listen. So I started in the workplace being, Brianna, you need to start to learn how to shut your mouth and listen and be aware and watch other people's language. So I did utilize the workplace in order to help me learn something
mm.
from what I needed to do in motherhood.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've taken if a lot of what you learned in motherhood, and you can apply that equally to the
Oh,
workforce as well,
yeah.
right?
I love like when we were working and we were building leadership development programs and communication programs, my favorite thing about all of that was that people would come up to me and say, "I've used this at home. I've used this
That's
with I
amazing.
feel like it's made me a better mom, a better parent, a better wife, a better sibling, a better child." Like, I've heard that from people, and I'm like, that's what it's all about. You have to be able to do it in all areas of your life, and you have to find those safe spaces to practice, meaning just where you feel safe in the moment to practice those things. I'm curious though, you actually mentioned this and I was waiting for you to talk about it, which was your gut. You must have like a really strong gut instinct that you've in trust in yourself, right? Like I trust
Yeah.
that I'm going to make this decision and that I'm going to support myself and that if it's not the right decision, I trust that I'm going to be able to figure it out and that I'm going to be able to handle it and I'm going to make another decision based on the new data that I have at the moment. Like I feel like that's kind of strong, resonates strongly in you.
Yeah, I'd agree. Now that you say it, I'm like, I don't know where it comes from necessarily. But yeah, when it comes to the big decisions, I don't know. Like, for
Girl, it
example,
comes from
a wedding.
survival.
Maybe that's what it is from, to, yeah, being a product of divorced parents again. And, that just kind of mindset of I need to do what I need to do to make sure I'm okay, basically. But yeah, like other big decisions I've made, wedding dress. I remember I was living in London at the time, planning a wedding in both London and New York. No, in Dublin and New York from London, as you do. And my mom was traveling to London for the first time, not for the first time to meet my in laws. So basically, we're meeting the parents on neutral ground in London. And it was the only opportunity I had to go wedding dress shopping with my parents. Um, and, with most people, you'd go to multiple wedding shops with your parents. And I remember I booked like, I don't know, 5 different shops to go with my mom. And I went to the first shop and I tried on like 5 wedding dresses and I tried on one. I'm like, this is the dress. This will work. I'm like, this is amazing. And my mom's like, wait a second. We have like 5 other places that are booked. And I was like, no, this is perfect. This is great. I'm like, I love it. It's fantastic. I don't want to go to the other places. And she thought it was absolutely nuts because she said, but don't you want to try the other ones? And for me, I was like, I don't want to schlep around London with my mom to go and try on dresses that who knows if I'll definitely like them or not. And I just wanted to make a decision there. And I'm like, this will work. Um, and
This will
then
work, and I'm definitely okay with loving my decision.
Yeah, and I'm okay
Yeah.
with loving my decision. Exactly. And I didn't revisit it either. I made sure to stop looking at wedding dresses, meaning I stopped looking online, I stopped looking at the books, I stopped looking at all those things. Decision made, I'm done. Because I think you can easily just, drive yourself absolutely nuts by looking at what are the better options out there. And
Oh, I
sometimes you
that
just have
gets
to
me into
stop.
spirals with everything. I call it my research phase. Like, I get to a
Mm,
point in my research phase, I look up everything, I ask people, I talk to people, and then as soon as I'm ready to make that decision on how I wanna move forward, I have to stop all the noise. I have to shut it off. I have to not look at it. I don't wanna talk to anybody about it. Like, I've done all of that. So, yeah, I'm like, "Here's my research phase, and now I'm making the decision, and now we're
I'm closing the
executing."
book.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm
Yes.
not looking back. Like you're just happy with that decision.
Dude, that's something I've had to learn, that choosing happiness is a choice.
Yeah. I completely agree. It is a choice. And not just choosing happiness is a choice. What was I gonna say? I think you also it's not always just about leaving things to fate, right? I'm a believer of fate. I think there's it plays a role in everybody's life. But at the same time, I feel like you need to kind of help fate along or make decisions to kind of help things along. And like what I mean by that is just to give an example. So when I moved to Dublin, again, I have to start all over again with making new friends and trying to integrate into a community. And I'm living in an area, it's not an expat community. I'm surrounded by people that have lived in Ireland for a very long time, etc. It was a weird time and it was COVID when we bought our house. And like it was a weird time to be meeting people. I know you live in the US and there wasn't as many restrictions, but in Ireland, you couldn't go more than 5 kilometers. That's like the equivalent of 3 miles. Like your circle was very small. You're supposed to be social distancing. And I'm like, how am I going to meet people? And I was thinking, you might run into your neighbors or knock on the door and say hello, just a quick introduction or something like that. But it was a weird time again. So I didn't want to do that. So I went over to the shop and I bought 2 cards and I filled it out. And I was like, and I basically was introducing myself and Ronan to our neighbors to the right and to the left. And just to be like, hi, we're your new neighbors. We've moved in. Weird, awkward time. Um, to say hello, but just wanted to say hello. And next thing I know, one of my neighbors actually puts a note back in our mailbox and says, lovely to meet you. My name is such and such and such and such. Here's my number. Come over for a drink sometime. We took her up on the offer and we went over to their house one day after the kids went to sleep. We went there at like 10 p.m. and we're like, oh, we'll be home. My husband was like, oh, we'll be home in an hour. We didn't come home till 3 in the morning because we had such a good time. They're sitting out the door with shots, to be honest. And they are now really close friends with us on the road. And because we met them, we met other people on the road. And literally the next year, I got roped into planning the first street party on the road where I got to meet the entire road because I was in charge of accepting invitations from everybody, like accepting invitations. And people were literally knocking on my door to say, I just wanted to know who is coordinating the street party. And I'm like, I've been on the road for 2 years. I'm not the brains behind it. It's Orla that lives across the road. But now I know loads of people on the road.
Girl, I feel like that story is just such a great metaphor for when you have this feeling in your gut and in your heart when you're like, I really need to meet people. Let me think about like how I can do that. You know what? I could actually put a letter in the mailbox. But some people might be like, "Oh, that's uncomfortable," or "It doesn't feel right to me." But you knew, like, you're like, "No, that feels in alignment with what I wanna do," right? It feels like in
Yeah.
alignment with who I am, what I wanna do, and what it
And don't get
sparks
me
for
wrong, I
you is
didn't
just
go
beautiful.
to your point, you need to do what you're comfortable with. I didn't put a note in every I live in a terrace house, so that's basically the equivalent of townhouses in the US, right? And so I could have gone down the entire road and dropped in notes on everybody's mailbox saying, hello. I would have been known as a lunatic on the street for doing that. I didn't do that. I just felt like to my right and to my left, just be nice to know who I'm sharing a wall with, basically. And who knew it would have resulted in that. This, beautiful relationship and an introduction into the community where I'm now involved. We've done the street party 3 years in a row. I'm still responsible for collecting invites, and I've also become the treasurer somehow. But anyway, um, at the same time, things like that aren't guaranteed, right? Like
No, they're
I
not
didn't.
guaranteed, but if you didn't do anything to begin with, you might have not even gotten this far. And I just think it's so beautiful that it's to me it's part of your bigger story of you are somebody that takes control of your life and you take control of your destination. And you go, this is what I'm missing and this is what I want and I'm going to go do
Uh,
it. Like even your singles trip in Costa Rica, right? Like you didn't know what was going to come out of it, but you know you wanted to explore something different. Didn't you go surfing in like didn't you take a surfing trip somewhere by yourself? Like you've done so much solo tripping in your young 20s. I'm like, but
yeah, but
you
again, to your point, you say solo tripping. It was calculated in that. All right. That was a surf and yoga retreat in Nicaragua. I'd never gone surfing in my life before, and I went on my own, but it was a retreat.
yeah.
So it was only women. There was like 10 to 15 women that were there for various reasons and various ages. That it was calculated and I wasn't comfortable. Some people, you know, would be brave enough to be like, I'm going to go on a solo trip to Iceland and go rent a car by myself on my own. And that's not what I felt comfortable with at that
Mhm.
time. It was, I wanted to be with people, meet new people. I love meeting new people, to be honest. I love talking to people. A lot of my friends in New York would actually give me a hard time because whenever we went out, I'd always end up talking to somebody that was not part of our group. And they're like, you're always talking to other people. I just love learning about people and getting to know them and everything. So I'm like, okay, a retreat is great because going somewhere brand new, it's kind of being led by somebody. You're meeting a lots of amazing people. And you know what? I will say that trip is what actually led to me meeting my husband. And the reason why I say that, if I connect the dots, this is where I believe kind of in fate at the same time. If I connect the dots on that trip, the surf and yoga trip, I met a girl by the name of Sophia. Shortly after that trip, so she was a physical therapist. Shortly after that trip, I fractured my knee indoor rock climbing. I was an avid rock climber at the time. I don't do any working out at the moment because I have a small daughter. But anyway, at the time, I was very, very active. I fractured my knee and she was amazing because I became friends with her. She's like, I'm going to give you virtual physical therapy sessions. And, you know, this way you know, recover a lot faster. We became friends. She asked me if I wanted to go visit her out in Santa Monica in California. I flew out there for, I think, a long weekend. Then we came up with this idea. We want to go on a trip together. She was the one that was kind of, we both were researching trips. I think we were thinking between Thailand, Costa Rica, or somewhere else. And she's like, I found this trip in Costa Rica. It's called Trekking in Costa Rica. Wouldn't it be fun? So she flew from California. I flew from New York. We went on that trip, and that's where I met my husband. So that's where I believe in fate, because who knew? I just think fate had all those stars align for it to work. And part of it was me saying, yes, I will come to California. And yes, I will take you up on your offer to go to to help me. And yes, let's go to, Costa Rica together, and all that.
Girl, you wanna know what I also came up for me when you were just telling that story was how you really knew your strength. Like, you really knew that you love talking to people, and you knew that you loved meeting new people, and that you knew that you loved learning about different cultures and hearing people's different stories, and that was something that excited and fueled you, and you leaned in. Like, you
Mm.
totally leaned into that part of yourself, and you're like, "Okay, I'm comfortable in this space, let me go explore." I love that because I think we talk a I talk a lot about that too with when we talk about leadership in general and, like, working and what are your strengths? Like, where do you find your biggest strengths in life? What excites you? What brings you joy? And, like, how do we lean into that now? Whether it's in work or in life or parenting is hard because you really can't pick your kids.
No.
But, we were talking about this earlier about you traveling with your kids or what's exciting you and how do you bring that into your life? And I think that's such a great question to ask ourselves, and you knew that early on that you loved meeting new people, and so you leaned into it and you were like, "I'm gonna go explore this world, why not?"
Yeah, and even to bring it back to, like, using what you learn in life from at work, for example. Again, so talking about Irish culture, it is very common when you call somebody at work, you don't go straight into what you need. You talk for about 10 minutes, like, or 5 to 10 minutes, kind of building up to what you wanna get to. So you're always kind of to use the US term, shooting the shit before you, actually get to what you need to get to. And I think, having the ability to, wanting to get to know people, I'm able to just, connect with people on a personal level, which helps ultimately. And I love this, by the way, about the Irish culture because you connect on that personal level. And I think it helps you from a work perspective because people are more willing to do things that you need to do, or you can help bring them on the journey a bit better when you've got a kind of a personal connection. At least that's kind of what I
Well,
find.
I think, like, growing up, that personal connection in leadership and art was not prevalent for me anyways. Like, no one said, "Go have a personal relationship with someone." They said, "Go get the job done."
Mm, yeah.
But
I
you're
also
so
found
right,
in
though.
in New York growing up, again, think about our low 20s entering the workforce, et cetera. So there's a lot of aggressive people in New York
Well, we
of
went into
just
investment banking. So
so like yeah, which is aggressive. And that's kind of what you learn is just, just shout at people. You just need to get the job done, whatever else. And there's just so many other ways of kind of working. And I think now what I like seeing now is that you've got a lot of people that are adopting different working styles and you're hearing more of this bring your whole self to work. And you actually see that in practice.
I love that. I
more.
love that because I've definitely been somebody who has, like, masked up at work and has had to I've had to even figure out who I am as a human so I can start to show
Mm.
up who I am
Mhm.
as a human, which so, like, hence here we are, the podcast, right, where I'm, like, showing up authentically as me.
Which
Okay,
I
so
absolutely love.
thank
This is
you.
you. Investment banking was not you. Okay? Like, it just you didn't like it, you can see you didn't like it, and this is Brianna that I know and love, and you're playing to your strengths, and you are so good at coaching people and, I don't know, you always show up. You're a friend that I could just call and ask for advice, and you help me think through problems, and it's absolutely amazing. This
Well,
is
I
what
think
you should be
friendships
doing.
are
This is your
beautiful.
calling.
Thank you. Thank you for being my such good friend and lovely human that, like, there's no judgment, right? Which is, I think, the most beautiful friendship. We're all different, and so when we can have friendships that are have no judgment, it really is just a beautiful thing to experience, and I'm so grateful for that. Okay, so before we wrap up, I wanna ask this one question. So if there's is there anything you wanna share to all the podcast ether listeners out there? Any, like, words of encouragement or wisdom or just something on your heart when it comes to if they're going through something or they feel stuck or can't make a decision or wanna trust their gut or intuition on their next move, like, anything that comes up, all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's a big question. What would I say? I would say if you're feeling stuck, do say yes, right? Say yes to things, new experiences. You never know what they might turn into. But also, like I said earlier, try to be a bit more intentional. I think just going about your normal day to day that you normally do is not going to really open up anything new for you. So you need to kind of be a little bit more strategic around that. And yeah, trust your gut more. And, anything, in my opinion, to what we said earlier, everything is undoable. Or maybe not undoable, but you can deal with anything. Like you move country, it doesn't work out. What's the worst that can happen? You move home. Or you're in a new country and you're experiencing something new. You go to a job, you absolutely hate it. Go somewhere else. Don't stay there. You don't know it's anybody else. And I think everybody gets so stuck on things being permanent when it doesn't need to be. And again, if I go think about my apartment, I bought it. 2 years later, I sold it for 100K more. And who would have known that would have happened? I didn't plan for that. It just happened to be a really good financial situation that was a nice surprise. But a lot of people were just like, what are you doing buying this place? And you're leaving. And it actually worked out to my benefit.
Well, I love to, like, you're definitely someone that takes these risks in life and work and business and all of that. But there's calculated, right? You do your research. You know what can happen, what could happen, what's possible to come up. And then you go, okay, I'm good. I'm making this decision and we're moving forward. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I think, and another thing is too, I I don't want to live a life of regrets.
Mm,
I rather, go for something and it fail than to always wonder what if. So I think it's better to just put yourself out there and give it a go. And if it doesn't work out, at least you know it didn't work out. You tried it. You won't have to think about it again. Be like, done. Check that off the list. I feel there's a few things I'm still in my mind thinking I want to do and eventually get around to because I'm like, what if? I just haven't figured out how to do them yet.
girl, I'm still just trying to learn how to dream. I'm like,
Yeah, I like that
yeah.
though.
Yeah. I'm like, I got to learn how to dream again. I've been, in motherhood and like in the thick of all of it and going like, what is it that I want? What is it that I want?
Mm,
How do I want this life to look for me and my family? And it's scary. It's scary to dream. And it's kind of like in your 20s, you dreamed a lot. There's
yeah,
like, and then now for me, I'm
I
like starting to dream again.
I agree, and it's very easy to kinda go through the motions as well, and just to be like, do good in school, get a good job, move up the ranks, and then you're like you get to a point, you're like, "What's my purpose?" And and "Why am I here? Why am I doing this?" And so I love that you're taking the time to dream, and I'm trying to do the same. Last year, I actually created a vision board, a visual one. I use Canva. I tried to embrace technology and I printed it out and I put it on my wall. And I did most of the things on it, and I've been saying to myself, I haven't done it this year, that I wanna do it again because I think it's so important to actually see these things, visualize these things, to remind myself to be like, "Okay, that trip to Croatia, like, I didn't book it yet. Get it done."
I've only done 2 vision boards in my life, and they've both been really freaking well, one was my first one was a couple years ago, and I still my girlfriend Christina and I talk about this. They were just like I was showing all these things I wanted to do, but they were all with kids, like, kids were playing, and I was like, "Watch me have another kid. Watch this happen," and, like, I was pregnant a month afterwards.
You
But
manifested it.
it was so odd. I just made another one this year, and something I said yes to was I saw on, like, our local library, like, they were doing a vision board session, and I was like I asked my mom, I was like, "Do you wanna go with me? They're doing vision boards." So, it was pretty awesome, actually, just going into the local library, doing vision boards with people I didn't know, got to have some cool conversation. We actually a lot of us at the table had kids that were neurodivergent on the autism spectrum, and yeah, and
But
so
I think that's so
it was
cool
pretty
that
cool.
you did that because, like, one of the things that I love as well is you said you talked to other people. Sometimes it's amazing what you learn from people just by getting exposed to new ideas. Like even
Yeah.
simple things of what to do with your kids on the weekend. Like I was talking to somebody, they're like, "Oh, there's a National Aquatic Center in blah blah blah." I'm like, I didn't even think to go there. Now it's on my list of something to do when it's raining in Ireland, which it always is. That's indoors that I can do with my daughter. So I think that's one of the things that I love about meeting new people is getting exposure to things you would have never thought of. And who knows, maybe did you meet somebody that day where you were like, "I never thought of that, and I want that on my vision board?"
I didn't think about meeting on my vision board, but what I did do is, like, I gave out 3 business cards. Like, it for me, even just, like,
Great.
talking about my business and because 'cause I'm still trying to articulate all of it, right? The
Mm,
podcast project has been a very powerful experience for me because I've been able to I'm learning how to articulate what my business is, what Bright Peak Consulting is, what coaching means, what working with me in a consulting or training, and what I'm looking f what how I'm helping to support clients. So, being able to it's been a journey. So it was part of my journey of having to share this with people when they start asking me questions. So it
mm,
was really cool. And I do love you had said earlier about what's my purpose. And I'll just end with this before we hang up, which is I think that I just started asking myself that question and so I know how powerful that work is when you're trying to make decisions in your life and you're going, is this in alignment with my purpose? Is this in alignment with how I want to show up in the world? Is this in alignment with my values? And so I love doing work with people because I'm in the thick of it myself, which are what are my values? What is my purpose? How do I want to show up so that I can be in alignment? And then I find that I have this much fuller life and a lot less stress. And I'm just like, this is so much more beautiful. How come we're not teaching kids to just find their purpose or even
yes.
identify it early on? Because I feel like it would have made such a big difference for me.
I completely agree. I think there's something about, I think, turning, you know, 40 where you start thinking about what you've done over the past 20 years. That makes you quite a question, what is my purpose and all that? Because I've only started to be thinking about that recently. And I completely agree with you. If they had just taught us in school to try to, figure out what it is we want our purpose to be and live a more purpose aligned life, maybe we would have more fulfilling lives.
Oh,
I don't
but
know.
would we have listened?
No.
We weren't meant to do this work till now. I think that's something I would tell my younger
Mm,
self is, yeah, let's wrap up with this piece is what would you tell your younger self now? Because I think I would tell my younger self is like, just be patient. Like, this is not your time to learn that. This is not your time to go through it. Go and be present in what your experiences are and what that's trying to teach you and be aware of start tapping into how do I feel and do the work that's being called for you to do and don't feel like you're missing out because that time will come. I mean for me it's the same thing when you're dealing with kids and milestones, right? Which is it's not always going to work out as the graphs say it's going to work out. So it's like it's not our time yet, right? So what is this era that you're in and just enjoy it and love it and be okay knowing that girl when you're 30 you're going to work through all your relationship issues and when you're 40 you're going to start really identifying your purpose and
uh,
like understanding what you value and move forward from there. And so that's something I would go back and tell younger Brie.
yeah. No, I completely agree with all that, to be honest, because I think also too, when you're in your low 20s, you, you're just figuring out really how to, like, live on your own, be a grown up, and all that other stuff. So I think that's, like, your phase of figuring out life. Not everybody's gonna be, what's her name? Greta Thunberg, which she has a
Mhm.
purpose, from a very young age, and that's okay. We don't all have to have that. So I just agree with you, and all of that. I'm not sure what else I would tell my younger self. You know, you just will have different phases of your life, and you'll be more sure of yourself, when you're older because you just have more life experiences. And it's okay to be uncomfortable in your 20s and not have the answers. And you're going to continue to have questions, but I
And you
think you'll
get
have
to
more
learn about
tools when you're
yourself.
older. Yes, exactly. You learn about yourself. You have more tools when you're older to kind of deal with all this stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Well, can I thank you for doing this with me. Your story to me is just this magical place of self-trust, self-desire, like making shit happen, making decisions, and like having the courage to say yes and change your life and do what feels right. And trust that and trust in yourself. Like you have this whole big trust in yourself that w- I trust myself that I'm going to if it's not working, I will change it and I will figure it out. And I think that's such a beautiful story. So thank you for sharing and I'm excited for us to talk again. I love you, friend.
Oh, thank you. Love you too. It's so great to be a part of this. And thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Wow. I am so grateful to Nicole for this conversation and for sharing her story with so much honesty, heart, and courage. What stood out to me the most is the way she moves through life with intentionality and self trust. She says yes when it feels right, even if it's scary, and she makes decisions knowing that she can handle whatever comes next. I just love that about her. If you're in a season of change or standing at the edge of something new, I hope this conversation reminds you that you can trust yourself too, that you're allowed to take risks, follow the spark, and create a life that feels like you. So here's a few reflection questions you might take with you after this episode. One, what's a decision I've been holding back on because I'm afraid of the unknown? Two, what does my gut know that my brain is still trying to talk me out of? Three, what would change if I gave myself permission to want what I want? And four, where in my life am I following someone else's version of success? And what would it look like to rewrite that story for myself? Whew, that last question, man, I have been working on that for so long. And I'm so glad I got to share some of my story here too. So, as always, if this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it, leave a review, or reach out and let me know what landed. And if you're craving a space to explore your own story and spark, check the episode descriptions for ways that we can connect, either through coaching or a conversation. Until next time, keep believing in yourself. You're doing an incredible job. Bye for now, friends.